So, welcome everyone. I am delighted you were able to join us for today's Mineta Transportation Institute Research Snaps webinar. My name is Hillary Nixon, and I serve as the Deputy Executive Director for MTI. MTI is a U.S. Department of Transportation funded university transportation center at San Jose State University. Our mission is to increase mobility for all by improving the safety, efficiency, accessibility, and convenience of our nation's transportation system. During today's webinar, if you have any questions for our presenter, you can submit them through the conference Q&A or chat feature. We are recording this webinar, and the link to view it will be available shortly after the webinar on our website and social media pages. The focus of our webinar today is a recently completed project funded through our California State University Transportation Consortium, which is a partnership with MTI, California State University's Long Beach, Chico, and Fresno. At Fresno, they have initiated the Fresno State Transportation Challenge, which engaged local schools and their surrounding communities to learn more about transportation and transportation-related careers. Today, we will learn more about this program and how it might be replicated in other areas. It gives me great pleasure to introduce today's speaker, Dr. Christian Wandler. Dr. Wandler is an associate professor in research methods and statistics at California State University, Fresno. He has a PhD in personality and positive psychology from the University of Zurich in Switzerland. His research interests are the development of hope and learning achievement, project-based learning, and self-managing teams. Christian, thank you so much for being here today to share your research with us. Take it away.
Thank you very much for this kind introduction. I'm excited to share some of these results with you all. And I really, first of all, want to thank the students and teachers who participate in this project, and also my colleagues, Dr. Stephen Hart, for this wonderful collaboration, and then especially Dr. Aly Tawfik, who has founded the Fresno State Transportation Institute. And also thank you for the committee at the Fresno State Transportation Institute, the steering committee, who has decided to invest in some of these projects to do outreach to schools. So what is this, what I'm going to talk today about is, what is this transportation challenge? What do we do exactly? What are some of the results, and how does it continue? Really, the goal of this transportation challenge is that students in K-12 education create a project around the topic of transportation so that they can research it, an issue, and then take action that has an actual positive impact on their community. When you look at the future of education, right, clearly project-based learning is one of those methods to create an authentic learning experience. And we had K-12 students, university students, and others involved. So I'm going to tell you a little bit more about this, what's special about this project, that we not only have students, but we also try to involve the industry, transportation-related professionals, and the community. We have a number of outcomes for the students, right? First of all, we want to develop their awareness of transportation-related issues, right? Also, awareness of transportation-related careers. Then, of course, develop STEM and literacy-related skills, but also develop 21st century skills. That would be critical thinking, communication, collaboration, creativity, and their leadership and citizenship skills. All in all, we also want them to develop an agile mindset and a growth mindset so that they realize that they develop hope and self-efficacy to tackle challenging projects or challenging problems, and develop how they and understand how they can impact their communities and ultimately also the planet. Similar to teachers, we want to develop teachers and support them in these new learning methods. And at the same time, hopefully they also expand their awareness and sensitivity of transportation-related topics, and also opportunities for careers for their students. Then for our university students, we're really excited for them to get a connection with the community, learn about how to work with youth, learn about agile mindsets and team working skills that they can teach youth, and at the same time practice them themselves, and potentially also increase their interest to become teachers. Right? It's also a great opportunity to give back to the community, and same thing is for the community itself, right? A lot of times we find that people don't know how to get involved in school, so we try to make this connection. And we also advocate that students impact their community in a positive way. That involves also discovering needs that the community might have. And furthermore, the industry, right? We look at developing partnership between the project and industry professionals so that, for example, we have engineers do presentations in schools, or that students can interview specialists from different areas. Now, what's our method? We're using an engineering design process, notably design thinking. We use agile learning methods. We use a method called Eduscribe, and we use an action civics pedagogy that's rooted in service learning. So here's the idea that as a student, that you experience agency in the world, and you experience that I can make a difference, we can make a difference in this world. The challenge has broadly 5 phases. At the beginning, phase 0, we just develop a little bit of content knowledge about transportation. What is that? Modes of transportation, for example, how do we get to school? After this basic introduction, we ask the students to identify a problem, a challenge. That's transportation related. For example, here, the project that we are presenting today, they defined walking as a mode of transportation, and ultimately they ended up in a situation where they had to ask, is it actually safe to walk to school? So, for example, they could conduct walkability audits, safety audits to walk to school, and develop ideas of how can we make it safer to walk to school. So in the phase 2, they explore the idea, they research the idea, and they ideate solutions. What can we do? How can we solve this problem? And then they get feedback from the community. It could be in a school, it could be outside of school, and they further improve their solution. That's in phase 3. They test it, improve it, and then in phase 4, they actually take action to implement the solution, or at the very least, to present the solution to community members. So I want to show you a lot of examples. Here is an overview of the process. Here's an overview of the Eduscribe method. This is an example of the Eduscribe board. So each team has a board like that that makes their learning visible and helps them manage their teamwork. This is just kind of the background information of how students can manage a project. So the first project I want to share with you was the pilot study that we conducted in an after-school program. And here you see some of the kids. It's not all of them, but it's a selection of the kids. This is in the south of the city of Fresno. It's an area that serves a lot of underserved students. And notably is also a transportation desert, right? There's hardly public buses. There's few grocery stores, right? The usual thing where it's not really an area known for transportation equity. So here you see the first phase, brainstorming, first of all, is that even a problem walking to school? Is it safe, unsafe? And you see here students brainstorming, sharing their experiences. Then we talked about, well, how can we make it safer, right? So brainstorming solutions, first of all, and then experimenting what this could look like. So in this case here, we built a model of the school. This is their actual school with the outline. And the university students and transportation engineering students were teaching kids, how road design, how you can make roads safer. And you see some of the experiments that they conduct, right? With speed bumps, signage, crosswalks, etc. You can even see here, for example, there is a drone landing spot. I'll share a bit more about this, but they were so creative with how they would solve these issues. Once we came up with some suggestions, we actually had a community outreach event. And here you see Dr. Ezas working with students. He's a fellow at the Transportation Institute in Fresno. And these are community members that play around with this model of the school. And this also gave us opportunity to exchange with the community, with parents, talk about, is this really an issue, this walking to school? Is it safe or not safe? And there we learned that this has been an issue that's been going on for decades. But the agency of the community is somewhat limited. The students started collecting signatures as well for a petition to support their cause, right? That we need to do something about the situation. And this is now still ongoing to enter the political process of what needs to be done to create a more safer environment. Then the second project was during summer school. We worked with 3rd grade, 5th grade, and 7th grade students. And we notably brought also Dr. Tawfik to the school, and he was giving a presentation about the future of transportation. So we discussed different topics such as electric vehicles, drones, autonomous vehicles, and the students had to kind of imagine what could a future like that look like. It was interesting to see that one question that came up, for example, was a moral dilemma. If an autonomous vehicle has to decide between hitting a kid that crosses the street, or deviates towards the crosswalk, and there's an old grandma there, which way would you go, right, as an autonomous vehicle? Things like that. We see here that we really focus on team building and having kids work in teams. And here you see 5th graders experimenting with cars, building cars, talking about traction, and experimenting with different wheel sizes, etc. And here you see an example of how teams would manage their project. And towards the end of the project, we organized a transportation conference where different groups would present their work to each other. Here you see them preparing. For example, here what you see is actual wings that would fly kids to school. So they're autonomous wings, so nothing can happen to them because those wings would fly them to school. Here they present, have to write down what they're going to present. So we see how they really develop literacy skills as well. This is another gondola concept of bringing kids to school. And what's interesting here is that the teacher showed them a little example of a Latin American city where they have gondolas to connect people that live in slums on top of the hills, where we can't really build streets there, but you can build gondolas. And the students picked up some of these ideas and applied them to their context. Then here we see them presenting the results to the other students, and also exchange different results and exchange with teachers. So it was really forming a practice, community of practice around transportation. Then in the 3rd project, we worked during the school year. So we worked with teachers during their normal instruction. And again, we asked them to think about this challenge of how can we make it safer to walk to school. This time we had a different school district with 7th grade students from a rural school, and the same school that we started in, an urban district, with a 3rd grade class. And what's interesting for the 7th grade, just to give you some examples of what the outcomes were, in a makerspace class, the students designed an electric and a remote controlled skateboard to go to school safer, and also an underground transportation system, like a tube system. Then in the computer science class, the students decided to design an app to increase walking to school safer. And the app has different features. For example, one is a map that shows you where crime happens in schools. It has an emergency button to call help. And it also has a video gallery of self-defense videos for kids, so that in case that something would happen, that kids have the skills to defend themselves. From the 3rd grade this time around, we had some ideas like having a protective necklace that can take care of intruders. We had also an autonomous electric sports car. We had a flying unicorn transport, and we had self-defense chewing gum. And what was really interesting is the academic conversations that students had during the improvement and design cycle, right? So they would challenge each other's ideas. For example, there was a long discussion about how long that battery of the protective necklace would last. And there was some hot water in this necklace that would spray intruders. And so there was a big discussion about how this water would get heated, how much water would actually fit in a necklace. And it would get very technical, and it was really great to see how kids, you know, they presented it several times. So next time around, they have to come up with better answers to these critical questions. Here I want to show some examples that we invited then the students to come to Fresno State. We organized a little conference at Fresno State where they can present the results to faculty. And again, you know, they had to answer a lot of questions from notably transportation engineers who, you know, didn't shy away of asking the tough questions. We also took the 7th grade students to a local manufacturing that provides parts to the trucking industry. And that was interesting for them to see, particularly students from the makerspace, because some of the tools that they used in the classroom were also used in this factory. So they would see the tools that they use in school implemented in an actual job and see actual people working on these machines. Here's another picture of the 3rd graders coming to Fresno State, and notably also with parents. And here just quickly some quantitative results, right? We had a control group in green, and we asked the students, you know, what did you learn about transportation issues? You know, what did you learn about transportation careers? What did you learn about going to university and engineering related careers? So we can see that the 2 groups that had more visitors and more impact would score higher on these measures. 2 of the outcomes, I'm not going to play the video here, but this little girl is clearly stating that when we ask her, do you believe you could be an engineer? She says, yeah, absolutely. And she's also going to go to Fresno State. And it's interesting.
Perfect. So what do you say? Are you going to go come study at Fresno State?
I'm going to say Fresno State.
Fresno State? All right, say Fresno State.
Fresno State.
All right. Do you think you could be an engineer? Yeah? Right, definitely, right? How about you, Hector? Do you think you could be an engineer? Yeah? All right.
And maybe you could quickly see it. The other kid asked, what is an engineer, right? So these are kids that had no concept of the engineer, and at the end here they feel like, hey, this is in reach, right? And especially also, you know, going to college is in reach. They interacted with college students. So I think those are some of the impact that we're trying to make.
To build something.
Yes, engineer is somebody that can build something, yeah.
And it's very important.
Yes.
Like to connect each other.
Yes.
Yeah, and you have to build something. It has to be a car or a speedboat.
Yes.
So you see, she really focused on the concept of transportation engineering, right? Cars, speed bumps, things like that. But we really try to broaden it also to other transportation-related careers. So in concluding, right, we really found that this challenge is a great way to engage students and their teachers and the community to learn about transportation-related projects. And in the future here, we are going to conduct the challenge again in Fresno County as the Fresno State Challenge. And furthermore, we're currently expanding to the whole Central Valley, focusing on the rural districts. And because of COVID, actually we planned already to do it virtual because of transportation issues, but because of COVID, we're going to be online, and we're going to do this challenge here in this coming year. So with that, I would like to conclude and thank you for your attention. And if you're interested in getting involved in this project, do not hesitate to reach out.
Great. Thank you so much, Christian. This has been really interesting. So as folks start to send in some questions, please send them in either through the chat or the Q&A. One of the things that I did see, and in fact, so someone's asked a little bit about how much time did it take to kind of get it started and from the beginning through the end. And I guess maybe if you can expand on that a little bit and talk about, you know, what would be the recommendations for someone wanting to implement a similar program in their school and community, and maybe talk about, you know, resources, partnership, this question about time, those kind of things.
Yes, so to get started, it takes quite a bit of time to build the relationships with schools and teachers that want to do it, that find the time to do it. So right at the first project we did in after school, and that was mainly because the teachers were too busy to include something like that right away. So we went where we had time to work with students. So a bit of flexibility there is good. Then as far as a teacher, it really depends. We worked right now about 5 to 6 weeks on this project, and we would invest probably about 2 hours a week on focusing on this project. That being said, it can take more or less time. It's really, one can expand these phases if one wants to. So it's really flexible. I think at the very least, one should count 6 weeks with 1 hour each. I think that would be probably the minimum.
Oh. You alluded to this during your presentation, but could you expand and tell us a little bit more about what you think about as the benefits to the program? And you talked about these different interest groups, the teachers, the students, the community. But how do you see this really having this positive impact across all those groups?
So the first thing would be that transportation is a really authentic topic. It's such a flexible topic that touches all aspects of our life. And I personally wasn't really aware of that, right? But I got to learn a lot from other colleagues in the Fresno State Transportation Institute. And so the connections that can be made to the normal curriculum of teachers is it's very easy to make these connections. So that's one impact that it can have, to just, make the learning more authentic, connected to, actual world events. For example, in California right now, right in Fresno, the high-speed rail is being built. So that's a very obvious connection. Then the whole aspect around equity, transportation equity. How come, certain schools have very nice sidewalks and we have only a sidewalk on one side of the street, and on the other side of the street, there's nothing. And we barely have crosswalks, so we can foster the critical thinking around that. And then the awareness of different careers, and specific also the awareness of going to college, interacting with university students, university professors. I think that's a profound impact. And then ultimately, the kids were really, at the West Fresno Elementary School, they really made an impact in terms of civics. So they advocated to have a sidewalk, and there was the process has stalled a bit. This is what I learned. But for a while there was political movement as well. So politicians were interested in, were visiting, were looking at the site. And why exactly it hasn't moved forward, I'll have to inquire. But we really can teach kids as well that they have a voice, that they can create an impact, and that they can you have to be persistent to make change happen.
Right, thanks. So I had a couple other questions come in, and both of them you've actually slightly touched on, but the petitions that you had people signed during the kind of the community outreach program, and this conversation with the elected officials. So those were actually given to the local officials, and there was some movement made, but they haven't made the impacts yet. So you plan to follow up, is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, we don't want to let this go. What personally was interesting too is also learning for me, as a researcher, as faculty, to see how do you make this happen, right? And to exchange with colleagues from the Transportation Institute, what are the official processes? Who do you need to talk to make something like that happen? And it also shows that it's not, we live in a democracy where these processes actually do exist, and there is ways to give your input, but you have to know how to do it, and then, make the connections with others.
Yeah, and I think an important element of that is the following up as well. So there was another question that came in about kind of the topics that you were covered. And I know that the emphasis was on safety, and this continued through those 3 phases, but was there a conversation about rail transit and how that might be integrated into the curriculum? I know you mentioned high-speed rail for the Central Valley future expansion, but could you talk a little bit about the different modes that you covered in the conversations that you had with the students?
Yeah, so in the beginning we talked, we really try to be student-centered. So we go off of the problems that the students give us, and we give them an overview in the beginning, an introduction to transportation. So we're talking about, you know, walking, biking, car, a school bus, trains, etc., plane, etc., right? And then it's we naturally gravitated towards the topic of walking. So in this particular challenge, we didn't focus, you know, on the rail at this point in time, but it could be that if students chose, or if we suggested that this should be a topic, could be that they could you know, examine that a little bit more. For example, think about, hey, if we have a rail station in Fresno, you know, how does this affect the area? How does this affect our neighborhood? How am I going to get to the train station, right? Because if right now it's funny because this train station is probably going to be less than 5 miles from where these kids live, but I personally don't know exactly how they're actually going to get and catch the train.
That's great. So you mentioned that you're expanding, you know, the work to do more broadly in the Central Valley. I also wonder if you've thought about expanding it, or maybe following these students, you know, further along in their progression through the K-12 system, to really think about this impact on workforce development. Because I think that the transportation profession has a lot of opportunities across all ranges. People who are going into 4-year programs, people that may go into a 2-year program, or even apprenticeship programs out of high school. And I wonder if you could talk a little bit about possible future expansions that would look up through that full K-12 spectrum.
Yeah, I think that those are great comments. I think we could probably be a bit more systematic about following kids and actually offering different opportunities along their career, right, along the schooling career. And you know, coming from Switzerland, you know, the apprenticeship model is dear to my heart. So to actually, for example, offer a pathway that's transportation career related at the high school level, or to offer internship where they can actually go and experience different careers. I think those are that there's a lot of opportunity there, and hopefully we you know, we are smart enough and to, you know, to seize those opportunities.
Right, thank you. Another question came in about community partners, and this one was specifically about involving the local transit provider, the local public bus system. And were they involved at all, whether guest speakers or tours, or have there been thoughts about doing that in the future so that students continue to develop those relationships with the community partners?
Yes, at the moment we didn't have any guest talks from the transit organization, but that would be definitely something that we're shooting for in the future. What we're doing right now is we're developing a database of transportation professionals that are willing to engage with students. And our goal is now to have this database ready so that when teachers are looking for guest speakers, that we can easily connect them with each other, so that the kids get to talk to professionals from the field, and that they get inspired from people that, you know, do the jobs that they might not even know that these jobs exist.
Great, thank you. Well, we are coming rapidly to the end of our 30-minute period. So one of the things I did want to remind everyone is, again, this webinar will be available, posted onto our website and social media pages, and also to encourage you to participate in future upcoming MTI webinars. Our next one is going to be on the Great American Road Trip, and it's kind of looking at a historical perspective of the road trip, and it will take place on Thursday, September 17th, the same time. You can get information on our website. Christian, thank you to you, your colleagues at Fresno State. I know we value the partnership that we have with Fresno State a great deal. This certainly sounds like it has been a great ongoing partnership with the K-12 system in your area, and I certainly look forward to hearing how the project continues. So thank you all, and with that, we will wrap up and end the webinar. Thank you. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye-bye. Thank you.